Welcome to another episode of Chad's Chat. Join Chad Chilius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. Today's podcast is sponsored by Recosoft, makers of PDF2ID. My name is Chad Chilius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor, as well as director of training solutions and principal at Chax Training and Consulting.
And my name is Dax Castro. I am director of media productions here at Chax Training Consulting. And Chad and I are both accessible document specialists certified by the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And if you would like your certification, head on over to accessibilityassociation.org/certifications and get more information. It's a really great certification to have, and we are so glad to have contributed to working on the questions for that test. But don't ask us, because we can't tell you any of those answers, right, Chad?
That's right. We signed the NDA, so none for that.
Well,
anyway.
and we can't even do training courses on it for a couple of years. We still have a few more, like 2 more years, and then we'll be able to at least provide some training. But yeah, more about that later. We have other fish to fry.
Exactly.
Chad, it has been raining cats and dogs here for the last week or so. And
still.
Oh, yeah.
Still, I know it's been raining for quite a while, right?
Yeah, it's getting ready to come down in buckets this weekend. And luckily, I have shored up my big giant koi pond hole in my backyard. My wife woke up the other night in a panic thinking that the hole was going to collapse. She's like, I have anxiety. I think the hole's going to, I know it's not, but I think the hole's going to collapse and we're going to fall in. And so
yeah,
she can't wait for that to get done. So,
well, we have flowers and trees blooming everywhere here in the Northeast. It's still chilly, but it's pretty comfortable, you know. And today is what we call a bluebird day.
Okay.
Right, where like the sky was just blue. It's what I call a happy day because we have solar panels. And on days like today, we are making money. Yeah. So
awesome.
it's a good day for solar panel owners anyway. So we have an awesome guest today. We have Paul Chada from Recosoft joining us here from Kobe, Japan.
Wow.
And Paul and I have been friends for many years. I met him, from our connections with Creative Pro Conference, and we're both in the graphic design space. And Paul is a fantastic guy. So welcome, Paul. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well.
On the show.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's really nice to have you on the podcast. I know it's funny. I remember back to my very first Creative Pro conference and walking out in the sponsors area and seeing your booth and chatting with you a bit, and then here we are a couple of years later, and now you're on my podcast, our podcast. So it's very much full circle. So welcome to the program. So today we wanted to talk about something that I think is a big struggle for a lot of people. It is accessible PowerPoint content that gets converting a PowerPoint to PDF and the struggles therein. And people think Word is a challenge. PowerPoint is even more of a challenge, right, Paul?
Yes, definitely. It's more of a challenge. The whole topic about accessibility is, it's a never-ending topic. Mm-hmm. And accessibility is it's a federal requirement, if I'm correct now, right?
Yep.
It's like, accessible documents. And accessibility spans across all documents, basically. So whether you create in PowerPoint or Word or any other tool, and our focus has been lately in ensuring that all the accessibility features or tags or information is carried over back in a high-level fashion to InDesign.
Right.
So a couple of our tools. We have a new tool called DecksMoveIn. It's a plugin for InDesign, which directly imports PowerPoint into InDesign. So you have your text and graphics and everything. And the latest release of the DecksMoveIn plugin will pick up all the accessibility tags inside a PowerPoint. Whatever all the accessibility tags that existed, right, will be directly sucked into InDesign. So your alt text comes in, your reading order comes in, and everything is nicely formatted within InDesign.
I will tell you that sounds amazing, because I have almost given up on PowerPoint when I'm preparing. Like, we're getting ready to go to CSUN in just a few days, and I have slide decks that I have spent painstaking hours moving them from PowerPoint to InDesign, because I am tired of spending hours remediating, moving paragraphs outside of figure tags because it happens to be a blue box behind white text. And so I'm like, I'm done. I'm just going to do this in InDesign. That way I know I can just hit export and it's good to go. But it sounds like this plugin you've got is basically going to save me all of that time and make me think and regret all of those hours I've spent so far moving that content. But that's really awesome. Does it actually, how does it handle images? Like, when it moves the image over, is it it's a linked image, right?
We've been doing InDesign plugins for about 15, 16 years now. So we know what an InDesign user wants. And awesome. when the DecksMoveIn plugin creates, when it imports the PowerPoint into InDesign, creates a pure InDesign file with all your images linked in subfolders. So page 1 will get a subfolder with all the images. Page 2 will get, again, another subfolder with all the images linked back in.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So from a workflow standpoint, right? So and I could tell you, right, Dax, you just said about your slide decks for CSUN, right? So we have CSUN next week, and I used to use Keynote, right? Keynote was my program of choice for slide decks and stuff like that. But Keynote does not output tagged PDFs. So if I create a presentation that I want people to be able to review and read the content, it's really, really hard to make it accessible. So I hung my head low and I said, fine, I'm going to use PowerPoint. And I can tell you, like, just today, I took a PowerPoint file, exported it to PDF, and spent a lot of time cleaning it up because it's just a bit of a mess. But with the DecksMoveIn plugin, I can just say, you know what? Take this PowerPoint file, convert it to an InDesign file, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I could check my InDesign file, make sure that my export tags are where they need to be. The DecksMoveIn plugin is already going to set the reading order for me. Does it set the tag order, Paul?
It should set the tag order also.
Okay, yes. Cool. So I mean, in like the matter of seconds, I can have an InDesign file that I can then from there spit out a PDF with a lot less effort, get an accessible PDF file. So it's a really interesting workflow.
Chad, I was thinking about, as you were talking, I was thinking of that one client you have that doesn't use PowerPoint to create slide decks. They use PowerPoint to create flyers and handouts and pages of content. And I was thinking, boy, this would be a great tool for them, because you could literally take their designs and say, okay, I know this is what you've been doing, but can we try this other way? Yeah. And then give them, I mean, that's a service in itself. Just taking just saying, look, I'll take all your flyers and client handouts that you've designed in PowerPoint. I just, my skin crawls just even saying it. I'll give you back an InDesign file that's ready to go, and you can move forward from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why fight it? Right. I mean, why fight this behemoth that we deal with when trying to make those PDF files, when InDesign just gives you a much better tool for generating that final file? So it's definitely something really interesting. And another product that you make, Paul, one that I've been using for many years, is called PDF2ID, right?
Exactly.
Dax, you and I have a client right now who has a bunch of PDF files, and they need to be able to make edits to those PDF files.
Yeah, it was an RFP submittal. So this is a large engineering firm, and they're going after this contract. And part of the package that you have to submit back to this organization is a series of PDF forms that ask for different information and certifications and things like that. Well, the engineering company wants to actually take those forms and put them into their own proposal response that has a designed header and footer and page number and all of that. The problem is they're just overlaying the text on top of that PDF that's been placed into InDesign, and then they're going to generate a new PDF of this InDesign plus, it makes my head spin just trying to explain it.
That's
right?
Completely inaccessible, right?
It's completely inaccessible.
Yeah, none of it's going to be tagged. You lose all the tags and everything. So with Paul's product, the PDF2ID, from within InDesign, you can import a PDF, and it will convert that PDF to native InDesign objects, the text, the images.
Yep.
And what's really cool, and this is where I give Paul a ton of kudos, because, Paul, I will tell you, like Dax and I talk about this all the time, how like the software vendors, they just fall short, right? Like a lot of things are possible via software. They just choose not to do it, right? And I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to do anything like that, but I do want to name you, because what you do when you convert a PDF to InDesign is you look at the tags that are in the PDF file. And if those tags exist, you automatically specify the export tag in the newly generated InDesign file. Which in my mind is incredibly amazing. I mean, it's an example where a software developer really thought this through and said, you know what? I have all this information. Why don't I just carry it over to facilitate this process, right? And of course, if the images have alt text, you carry that over into the InDesign document, and so it's really a phenomenal tool that you've developed.
Yeah, so PDF2ID, one of the greatest things is that we've received a lot of feedback. A lot of our features and new changes we make into the product is really driven by customers and feedback. So PDF2ID is a 15-year-old product. It's not, something new. And over the years, we've received a lot of feedback from various folks, and we've engineered it to the point where I think we added accessibility tags about 2 or 3 years ago. I don't exactly remember off the top of my head, but we added in after speaking to a bunch of people, and you, Chad, and you, Dax, and ever since then, accessibility just carries over. And the main part again about carrying over the accessibility tags is if you don't carry them over, if you miss an information inside the PDF, right? You're missing it if you don't carry it over. Nobody's going to go and check every single element. Oh, is this accessible? Does this have an alt text? Nobody, it's very painstaking. It takes a lot of time. Right. Our job, and I truly like to say this, is that we are here to automate your workflow, remove all the pain of, manual labor or minimize it as much as possible, so that you don't have to worry at your end and carrying over information or migrating information. It's about automating your workflow and letting the software do the job it's supposed to do.
Chad, I had a thought. So you and I have brought up this topic on several different occasions, where wouldn't it be nice if Adobe could analyze all the font sizes in a document and calculate, okay, the biggest font size is this must be the H1, 80% or 90% of this document is 10 points, so that must be the body text, and then figure out the in-between, what's an H1, what's an H2, et cetera, et cetera. How amazing would it be, Paul, if and this is a suggestion maybe, if your program, as it goes back from Acrobat to InDesign, does that analysis and says, hey, if a tag doesn't exist for what we think should be a heading, we've analyzed the document. We're like, hey, we think this should be a heading. Let's go ahead and assign it. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, actually, we could do that. That'd be pretty simple.
And listen, I mean, like, wasn't it so refreshing to hear Paul say, all of the features we've added are based on customer feedback?
Well, go back further. He said, we know what InDesign users want in their document. Immediately, I was like, that's not what you normally hear from a vendor. Normally, they're just like, well, our engineers have worked really hard on coming up with and then you talk with the engineers or you look at what they produced. And the one that comes to mind is what's the new tool for Adobe that with the intertwine, right? Intertwine.
Oh, yeah.
You highlight with the lasso and it makes it look like it's interlocking and you're like, that's a great feature. And then you're like, oh yeah, but it puts a bitmap on top of your vector art file. And you're like, what? Who thought of that? Why is that even a thing? Who thought that was a good idea? Right. And all of us literally, I don't know how many, 7,000 people were all in that auditorium when Adobe released it at Adobe Max. Everybody went, oh, this is amazing. And then you started seeing people pop up in the chats and on the tweets, on the tweets saying, yeah, except this other thing. So it's great, Paul, to hear you say that. Now I'll take it even a step further. What if I know I have a document that's untagged? And your document, then you're bringing it from PDF back to InDesign, would assign all of my heading tags or at least try to give me a start of all of my heading tags in my document. That would be, I could see that just being an amazing tool.
I mean, I think that's what you were just talking about, Dax, right? I mean, that idea that you just described that you and I had talked about before, I could see totally, Paul, right? Having a checkbox that says auto detect tags or auto detect headings or something like that. And then you could run that analysis and you could say, oh, this is the biggest type in my document, make it an H1.
Right.
This is second biggest, make it an H2, and boy, that would be slick. That would be really cool.
I apologize for jumping. I was just thinking, we could add this very easily. It's really not that difficult to do. It's like
I wish I was a developer.
I know, with great power, there's so much I could do. Chad, I have a 3D printer sitting in the corner that needs to be assembled. And I'm like, dang it, if I could just get all these add-on modifications installed, the power I could have to create all these things. If I were just a programmer, all the power I would have.
Oh my gosh.
But what I was saying earlier was, one method is I'm missing a heading or two. Right. And so you could extrapolate the missing data from what's already there.
Yeah.
But go take it a step further and start from scratch and analyze the whole document and just fill it all in. That would be great to approximate heading levels. And then you could review them and figure out whether or not you did it right. And because you're using styles, right? Because Paul, your program uses styles. If something was wrong or that H2 should have been an H3, it's super simple to change.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. You can send that royalty check, Paul, to just address it to Dax Castro.
Well, and I want to talk about one other product that Recosoft makes, I'm thinking about it because Dax, you and I received a file this week, and it was basically a letter to the public from the governor. We'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to say, blah, blah, blah. It was a document and it was scanned.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they tagged the text as figures and added actual text to those figures to make it read appropriately.
I'm shaking my head, Chad, for all of our listeners.
Trust me. I saw this file and I'm like, I don't even know how you would do that, right? Like, I don't even know how you would start. But what it made me think about, I looked at that file. I'm like, I could recreate this in about 5 minutes.
Yep.
From scratch and make it 100% accessible. The challenge becomes like there was a logo, there was a seal, there was a signature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Recosoft makes a product called PDF to Assets, right?
Oh, okay.
And so what this product does is you run the PDF through PDF to Assets, and it extracts every image and graphic from the PDF and collects it into a folder.
Oh, awesome.
That you can then use all of those assets to create whatever you want, right? And so on that particular project, it would have been like, snap your finger, there's all my assets, drop them into InDesign and run, So it's really great for repurposing content, right? And we've all been there, right? People give us a PDF and say, hey, I have a bunch of changes I need to make to this, and editing the PDF is not an option. We need to recreate it. And so PDF to Assets is a really, really slick tool for being able to repurpose that information. Is there anything you want to say about that, Paul?
Yeah, so PDF to Assets is sort of we designed it in a way where it sort of sits in between Acrobat, Photoshop, and Illustrator. I think that's the correct way to put it. We're not here to replace any of these tools, but it's very focused on one thing, is grabbing all the assets in a batch fashion from PDF files, right, and spitting it out into folders. It actually creates, for every page, it creates a subfolder, right?
Okay.
So your graphics assets, so artworks, for example, that are created by vector graphics or images and whatever, it'll grab it and it'll spit it out. And you can do this for 1,000 files. It'll keep on processing it. And so what happens is when you have processed 1,000 files, or say 500 files, even 20 files, you can reuse those assets anywhere. You can reuse it in any project. It's not tied to a particular document. The point is you now have all these assets as an independent entity, which you can use anywhere. And you don't have to struggle trying to, you'll say, well, I can use Illustrator to open it up. And then you try to grab a complex vector asset and you're like, wait, it's selecting all my path objects. And you don't want that. You just don't want all the path objects selected. You want to zone in on the one particular item. So PDF to Assets will do that for you. It intelligently groups things. It gives you a lot of controls, a lot of flexibility. One of the things we also learned over the years is, for example, suppose there's an image with a clipping path applied. Now, you want that transparency to reflect. There's a clipping path applied, so the rest of the area is clipped, so you just want it to apply and come in. So PDF to Assets will also honor that for you, and it'll create a TIFF or PNG with a transparency already applied. So you don't have to take that in and say, oh, I need to do a few more clicks and
post-processing stuff.
Post-processing stuff. So it's right there. So again, we've developed this keeping the designer, creative professional in mind, and it's all built for you.
Well, it's interesting. It reminds me of, we kind of reveal the secret every now and again that a Word file, that a doc file is just a zip. And if you change the Word doc to zip, you can then go in and collect all the assets. The problem with it is that the assets are all just in one folder, all jumbled together. And what I really like what you said was that your tool will compartmentalize them in the folders labeled by page number so that this graphic was on page 12 or this graphic was on page 15. So that gives you extra context. If you're repurposing them or just reusing them to create something else, where that object came from. I don't know how many times I've had to use Bridge to look at an image and try to figure out which page it's supposed to be on, because they gave me a new bar chart or a new line graph or a new whatever, and I needed to swap it out. I mean, definitely very, very useful.
And I mean, again, we tend to talk about these products as graphics professionals, but PDF to Assets, you could leverage as a PowerPoint user, as a Word user, as an InDesign user, right? Because all you're doing is extracting the assets, and where you use those assets is up to you. So if you are a graphics professional, sure, you're probably going to open up Adobe Bridge, look at all those assets, in one location. But if you're using Word, you can also grab those assets and drop them into Word as well.
My brain is always going, Paul. So here's another one for you.
Mm-hmm.
If the PDF had alt text applied to it, could you apply that alt text as metadata embedded in the image properties? How freaking cool would that be to be able to then drop those files into InDesign and take advantage of the fact that you can target the metadata of the image to pull the alt text right along with it?
That sounds very interesting.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. It's interesting. We'd have to see before I say, hey, we could do this. Right now, I always like to say, yeah, we could do this. Is we would need to see a use case for it. I think that's the right phrase here.
Right.
Well, so in November at Adobe Max, Adobe announced that Adobe didn't add it. It was IPTC added a new metadata field that's found in every image called alt text, right? We used to leverage the description field or the headline field or, whatever we had at our disposal. But now they gave us a dedicated alt text field, right? And so the advantage, Paul, is that if I have that alt text in the metadata, when I drop it into InDesign, I can tell InDesign to grab the alt text from that metadata field.
Oh, okay.
Automatically. And I mean, I don't think any other software can do that, right? I mean, Word can't do it, PowerPoint can't, but InDesign can. And I think that's where the use case would be, Paul. And you could even, you could incorporate that into the whole conversion process if you wanted to, right? You could say, I'm going to grab the metadata directly from the image instead of manually entering it in the alt text field.
We could.
There's another thing to think about too, though. WordPress will pull that data from the metadata. So let's say you had a PDF. Here's your use case, Paul. I have a PDF, but I want to build a web page instead of presenting this as a PDF. So I want to extract all the assets out so I can build a web page. Well, if you can grab the alt text that goes along with all those assets, then when I upload them all to WordPress, WordPress will automatically add the alt text if it's present in that metadata field. So now I could import 50 images, a photo gallery or anything into my WordPress build and not have to type a single piece of alt text.
Interesting.
Now, does WordPress recognize that alt text field yet? Does it?
It does. Yep.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So, anyway, food for thought. We're always a machine here, man. Chad knows it could be 3 a.m. and I am up and my brain is going. I'm constantly thinking about new ideas and new ways to do things. And it is, we spend so much time doing what we do. And I think it's important that we have a work-life balance. And I struggle with that tremendously. But I feel like if we can develop tools like yours, like Recosoft, like PDF2ID and the is it DecksMoveIn? Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
DecksMoveIn and the Asset Grabber. Those tools give us our time back. They give us more balance in our life. They allow us to not spend 15 hours doing a task that might only take 15 or 30 minutes. And not only the cost implication, but the time savings is so important, I think, for a lot of designers who just find themselves feeling so ripped apart for time and trying to juggle their life and their work all in the same breath.
Yeah. And I know, Dax, you and I have, with our business, we've encountered situations where we're like, oh boy, do we spend the money on product X or product Y, And what we usually do is we evaluate it and we say, how much time is this going to save us? Right? Like, is it going to save us a significant amount of time? And I really feel like, a product like PDF2ID, depending on your workflow, can be a huge time saver, just an enormous time saver. And so, Paul, how much is PDF2ID? What is the cost on that?
So we have two versions of PDF2ID. One is PDF2ID Standard, which is just PDF2ID on its own, right? That's $199. And we have PDF2ID Professional Suite, which comes with the bells and whistles and includes one of the bells and whistles is the asset. Is the accessibility tags are only available in PDF2ID Professional Suite.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Okay. And you also get the DecksMoveIn plugin, and you get the PDF2Assets external helper application. And that's $299 a year annual subscription.
And that's not bad. $299 is really a reasonable amount of money when you talk about the time it saves you. I can think of one of the things, there are many firms where designers come and go, and sometimes files come and go. And the only thing left is the PDF that's on the server, that's on the website, that's wherever, that they created, the end product. And I don't know how many times, Chad, you and I both have had this happen many times, where people are like, they'll post on a message board, this file was from 2015 and I need to recreate it. We need to update some information on it. Is there any way we can pull this back into InDesign? And honestly, this is the way, right?
Yeah, natively, the answer is no, right? I mean, when people are like, oh, what, InDesign can't do that? It's like, no, they can't, right? But PDF2ID can, right? And with a price tag of $299, that's $5.75 a week, okay?
Yep.
So I'm going to go, you remember those commercials when you were a kid? For the price of a cup of coffee, you too could have PDF2ID, right? But honestly, and I know we're all cognizant of the whole subscription, Dax, you and I are paying quite a few subscriptions right now, but it's the cost of doing business, right?
Yeah.
And if I can get hours of my life back by getting a copy of PDF2ID, man, I mean, that is well worth the price, in my opinion. I mean, honestly, if you're creative, right? I mean, I've been a designer for a long time. If you're creative, you could pay for that with one project, right?
Yeah.
Like one project, especially if that project has these challenges, right? Yep. You need to be billing for that. And if part of that is, covering the cost of the plugin, then so be it. I mean, that's how you get the job done without spending your life on that project, really cool. Really cool.
We are so glad to have you on the podcast. So where can they go to get this software?
So just go to www.recosoft, that's spelled RECOSOFT.com.
Awesome. So guys, head on over to recosoft.com and check it out. Now, is there a free demo or a download or a time-limited trial?
We have time-limited trials. You just have to submit information and you get the time-limited trial.
Super. So you guys can test it out and make sure, hold us to our word. We love this product and we definitely have used it in a pinch when we don't really want to have to spend the time to recreate a file. It's,
I can tell you guys, I have it on my machine, and actually I've had it on my machine, God, Paul, I want to say 7 or 8 years, I think, from the time I first met you. So I've had it on my machine for quite a while, and I reach for it on a regular basis. I mean, all of the products are fantastic and definitely, well worth it. So go on over to recosoft.com and check it out, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, and Chad, you're on a Mac, so it's cross-platform then, correct?
It absolutely is.
So that's awesome.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say PDF2ID is all of our tools are cross-platform. We believe in Mac and Windows.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Yeah, so I'm a Mac guy, so all of my Recosoft products are Mac based. But if you're a Windows user, they have it on Windows as well. So nobody left behind.
Nobody left behind.
No file left behind.
No file left behind. That should be our new tagline.
There
right?
you go.
Awesome, guys. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Paul, I really want to thank you for joining us today and being our guest on the podcast.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It's been wonderful doing this podcast.
And we also want to thank you for sponsoring the podcast.
You're welcome.
Well, once again, we want to thank Recosoft for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And just remember, if you're looking for in-person or online training or struggling to establish an accessibility program within your organization, head on over to accessibilityunraveled.com to learn more. My name is Chad Chilius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where each week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.